here. Just to give you a little bit about the background of why we chose a puppet show. We are basing our show on Europe, and Europe is the planet's 6th largest continent. It has 47 countries and assorted dependencies, islands, and territories. Italy, Greece, France, and Germany are just some of the countries in Europe. Coincidentally, these are also many of the countries which have the oldest known fairy tales. In France during the 1600s, adults even told each other fairy tales for fun. Since then, people such as Hans Christian Andersen and the Grimm brothers have become really famous for their retelling of fairy tales. Fairy tales have also had many other retellings since the original versions, and so not all of the fairy tales that you may hear are the same. Today we're going to tell you a fairy tale about a girl, her grandmother, and a wolf. This fairy tale is called Little Red Riding Hood.
Once there was a little girl who lived with her mother in a house at the edge of the forest. The little girl always wore a red cloak and a hood that grandmother had made for her. That's why everyone, even her mother, called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day, Little Red Riding Hood's mother said to her,
"Grandmother is not feeling well. I have packed a basket with fruit, cakes, and honey. Will you take it to her?" "Yes, Mother. Be careful going through the forest, and don't play around along the way. Grandmother is waiting for you." "Yes, Mother."
Little Red Riding Hood took the basket and was on her way to grandmother's house. Little Red Riding Hood had gone but a short way into the forest when a great wolf stepped out from behind a tree. "Good morning, Little Red Riding Hood. Where are you going this fine day?"
"I'm going to go see Grandmother on the other side of the forest. She is ill, and I am bringing her fruit, cake, and honey."
"Why not bring her some wildflowers as well? There are so many to pick from here in the forest."
"I cannot stop. Mother said I must not play along the way."
"Picking flowers is not playing around. Besides, a bunch of pretty flowers will cheer your grandmother up and make her feel better."
Perhaps you're right."
Little Red Riding Hood put down her basket and began to pick wildflowers. Meanwhile, the wolf slipped away and sped to the other side of the forest. When he came to grandmother's cottage, he crept up to the door and knocked. "Who is it?" "It is I, Little Red Riding Hood. I have brought you fruit, cakes, and honey."
"Oh, come in, dear. The door's open."
As soon as the wolf was inside, he ran over to the bed and gobbled up grandmother whole, leaving only her blanket and nightcap. He put on the nightcap and wrapped himself in the blanket. Then he crawled into bed to wait for Little Red Riding Hood. Before long, there was a knock at the door. "Who is it?"
"It is I, Little Red Riding Hood. I have brought you some fruit, cakes, and honey, and a bunch of pretty wildflowers to cheer you up."
"Come in, the door is open." Little Red Riding Hood went in and stood for a moment in the doorway.
"Grandmother, what big ears you have."
"The better to hear you with, my dear. Come closer." Little Red Riding Hood walked closer to the bed.
"Grandmother, what big eyes you have."
"The better to see you with, my dear. Come closer." Little Red Riding Hood walked even closer to the bed.
"Oh, Grandmother, what big teeth you have."
"The better to eat you with. Roar!" The wolf grabbed Little Red Riding Hood and gobbled her up whole. Then, feeling full and satisfied, the wolf lay down and fell asleep. Now, it happened that a woodcutter was passing grandmother's cottage just then. He knew the old woman had been feeling poorly and decided to look in on her. When he saw the wolf snoring on the bed, he knew at once what had happened.
"I have you at last, you devil!" Ah!
The woodcutter slew the wolf with his axe. Then the woodcutter took out a carving knife and very carefully he slit open the wolf's belly. Out popped Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother, safe and whole, just as the wolf had swallowed them.
"Oh, Grandmother, how happy I am
grandmother gave Little Red Riding Hood a hug. Then Little Red Riding Hood, grandmother, and the woodcutter sat down to a feast of fruit cakes and honey. They all lived happily from that day on, never to be troubled by the wicked wolf again.
The end.